And we are back for week 3 of the Create Your Own Nancy Drew Game podcast. This week I am joined with somebody I met pretty recently who kind of stood out during the Picture of Megan controversy because of their name, and that would be...
I'm Megan. I'm Nancy Drew-onthecase is my name on Tumblr.
I love how everybody flocked to you with suspicion because your name is Megan.
I know.
You would think that whoever Picture of Megan was would have been much more original than that and not have been you with the name Megan. But anyway, so I met Megan pretty recently on Tumblr when I came back from my hiatus. Right when I came back, Picture of Megan was happening and it was just a big old mess.
It really was.
But we will start with the general icebreaker questions. And the first one I like to ask is, what's your favorite game?
It's Ghost of Thornton Hall.
Yes, that is a common answer on the podcast. I
love it.
I agree. What stands out in that game to you above all other games?
Honestly, I just really love the ghost element of it. And I love how the ending is that ambiguous, the ghost could be real or it doesn't, maybe it's not real. Maybe it's just hallucinations. I've always been the one that's I want the ghosts to be real in everything. I don't know why.
And the way that she looks.
Yes.
Sometimes the way she looks, it can't be the people
right.
dressed up, because she's she looks all ghostly and her dress, the bottom of her dress is floating, and so it's
yes.
There's some parts I don't buy it's a hallucination, or the people that are, I'm not gonna say what's happening in the game, but the people who are responsible for what she's seeing, I don't believe that it's all of them because of how floaty the dress looks. Cool.
Exactly.
Have you read a lot of the books?
I read a lot as a kid, a lot of the yellowback covered versions, but honestly, I don't remember a lot about them. I've started rereading them now as an adult, so I've read a couple in the last year, but I don't remember a lot about them, to be honest.
Yeah, I've read a lot of the newer books. I said this last time, but the books that Secret of the Scarlet Hand is one of the newer, not newer, but I guess you would say 90s books maybe.
Yeah.
Or not the ancient ones.
Yeah.
The ones that the ones that have the more modern covers, and she looks a lot more modern.
I read some of those too as a kid. I started out with the older ones and then I went to some of the newer ones. But it's been so long, I just don't remember a lot about them.
Yeah. And I know the answer to this based on your Tumblr, but have you seen an indie movie or a TV show that is about the characters?
Yes. I'm a big fan of the CW show.
And particularly you're a big fan of a certain boy. And
yes, Ace.
So that was totally stupid for me to ask because I knew the answer, but I still wanted to just rip your boy where you could,
There you go.
My last icebreaker question is what are your outside of the fandom, other fandoms you're in, which I also know the answer to this. I know that you're a big Doctor Who fan.
Yes.
But besides, I guess, those two, what else do you do?
I'm trying to think of, wow, my mind just blanked. I'm definitely big into Doctor Who. I'm also Harry Potter. I'm really big into Harry Potter.
What house are you?
A Ravenclaw.
I'm a Hufflepuff, and I'm proud of it. I am not going to take any Hufflepuff shame in this podcast because I am a Hufflepuff all the way. I will defend that house to the grave.
Hey, I love Hufflepuffs.
Yes. I think that Hufflepuff is very, very overlooked. Yeah. And freaking Cedric came from there, and he's one of the best characters.
It's true. I agree.
Series. Anyway, so Hufflepuff for the win always.
I would say I'm probably a secondary Hufflepuff. Anytime I've taken those quizzes, it's Ravenclaw, and then Hufflepuff is another one that I get occasionally. So
yeah, Gryffindor is overrated. I mean, it's
exactly.
It's Slytherin. The other Ravenclaw and Hufflepuff are kind of on the lower end of the spectrum, and it makes me sad.
Exactly.
Okay, So I guess we will dive into this fabulous game that you've been creating over the past like 3 weeks. Um,
Yes.
I'm sure it's been consuming all of your stress and time. Uh,
Yes.
um, so if it's okay with you, I guess we'll start with just an overall basic. What's the plot? What's happening in this game? Tell us all about what's happening.
Okay. So I kind of took elements from like three different places for the like overall theme of the game.
Oh, great.
So I kind of took, a little bit of elements from like the CW show because I'm a huge fan. And then I took some elements from like the book called The Moss Covered Mansion, which is it's one of the classic older ones.
Right.
And then also some elements from like Ghost of Thornton Hall. So basically, it takes place in Ireland. So there's a town that's got like a big hill set up above it that's got a big like moss covered mansion there. And I kind of haven't like the idea that Nancy is with Bess and George, and they're
Oh,
kind of
yay.
just yeah. So I wanted them to be involved in it. So I just kind of have the idea that they, arrive in Ireland and they're just there for vacation. Like they just kind of stumble on this mystery.
As
So that
usual.
Yes. So they're there for a vacation. And they arrive and they kind of go out for some like sightseeing and they come across this like big, huge, like moss covered mansion that's like super mysterious. So they decide to explore it. And as they're there, there's like some like eerie, spooky, like ghostly sounds happening. And they're like super intrigued. But of course, like Bess is like freaked out by it. So she wants to leave, all that good
Classic.
stuff.
Classic.
But then I kind of have the idea that, they go back to town, they go to dinner at a cafe and maybe like meet the owner of the cafe who's like been in this town for like his family's been there for like generations. So they figure he might know about it. So they ask him about it and he kind of just like gives them like a vague like legend that gets passed around the town, like acting like he doesn't really know much about it.
Hmm.
Um, but like this is kind of where I'm like I don't have like the plot details like super fleshed out. So like I do know that there's like, there's a legend that goes around the town. Okay, so let me tell you some backstory. Sorry, I'm like super bad at explaining things.
Oh, it's totally fine.
So the ghost that's haunting this mansion, I have the idea that it's this woman who, lived years ago and she had this lover who the town didn't approve of. So I kind of have the idea that there's like two towns that are kind of like at odds with each other for some reason. And
Gotcha.
her lover comes from this other town. So the town's not very happy about her like being with him. So I kind of have the idea that at some point they've like met up and they've tried to kind of like meet up in secret, but somehow the town finds out about it and there is a group of people that kind of try and sabotage their outing, and something happens to where her lover ends up dying, like he falls off a cliff or something and he dies, and she's like super upset about it. And then I kind of have the idea that she like gets sick at some point, maybe like a year or two later, and she's like dying, and she's like basically she comes back as a ghost to like seek revenge on the town is basically kind of my
Yeah.
idea. So
So
there's
it's like
that.
a legend slash ghost story.
Yes. And
So
I
like,
kind of oh sorry.
I'm just reflecting. So like,
Yeah.
this is something like people would like, maybe like a bedtime story or like a scary Halloween story that people just like have passed along in this town,
Mhm.
and they associate these strange goings on in this mansion with this ghost woman whose I guess fiance or lover was tragically killed, and
Mhm.
it's giving me a lot of West Side Story vibes. I
Yeah,
have to
you know
plug
what?
in
I
musicals
actually
where I can.
I actually thought of that. Like when I was like thinking about the towns, I was like, this is kind of like West Side Story.
Like the sharks, like she's a shark and he's a jet.
Yes. Yes,
Um,
exactly.
yeah. Because I gotta plug in musicals where I can. But
Yes.
so this is in Ireland, but it's not at Castle Malloy. It's just in
No.
Ireland.
Yes. We're
Because
not gonna
let's
we're
not
not
be.
gonna link it there.
Yeah, let's
I
not
love
be.
that game. I love that game. I have a controversial opinion of loving that game, but I'm not super thrilled how they handle the whole like being in Ireland thing.
Yeah. So yeah. let's shout out Katie at Nancy Pants because she also
Yes.
is a diehard Castle Malloy fan. Um, but
Yes, cheers.
yeah, I don't want to like view this as like Ireland 2.0, like a better version of Castle Malloy, but at the same
Yeah, I
time,
know.
that game's mystery went off the edge like super fast, where it just became like um once you like saw beat it and like found out who the culprit is, like it like there was like really never anything there that like toward until the end that like made this character like suspicious. Like you know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah, yeah.
like it just the I think the culprit's an awesome culprit just because of the backstory of the culprit, but I think that it could have been handled a lot better than what it was, and you could have had a lot more um, potential, I guess, like clues that pointed to this person or something
Yeah.
sooner than what it was given to you in the game.
Yes.
So I love the idea that she's back in Ireland, and um, it's like a moss covered mansion, and there's a legend, and um, yeah, so we're totally combining like three different things here, and I think it's working out great.
Oh,
Um,
awesome.
awesome. So, is this like set in the summer or
Yeah.
summertime?
So yeah, I was thinking like late spring, early summer. I when I was Googling about Ireland, it was talking about how like during like because I was trying to find like what are the foggiest times of the year because like I just love that like aesthetic of like the fog.
Yeah, like the
So
Section Island fog and
yes, yes.
yeah.
So apparently late spring, early summer is like when it's the foggiest. So that's kind of where I was thinking I would set it in.
I can't like not imagine Thornton Hall in my head when I'm hearing this like moss covered mansion and fog and it's just like the Ireland version of Thornton Hall and I'm here for it.
Basically.
So so like the physical pretty much location is this mansion and um I guess the town.
Yes. So I kind of I envision Nancy, Bess, and George staying at like a bed and breakfast in town. So
Mm-hmm.
some of the characters they interact with would be like, you know, the person at the front desk at this bed and breakfast. Um, you know, they spend some time in the cafe with, you know, the cafe owner interrogating him because he's been in the town for his life.
Yes.
um Place, you know, so yeah, the town, the moss covered mansion. Oh, I also envision her running into the Hardy Boys during this investigation.
Oh well, so like everyone's there, pretty much.
Yes, I wanted
Um,
the whole crew there.
except Ned, but she always leaves him
I
out, so
know,
it's
but
okay.
he's her phone contact, like he'll be there, you know,
Oh,
he can
good,
talk to her.
good. Um, so I guess it's modern day,
Hmm.
um, but there might be some like potential flashbacks to like old times, like how Cap was. Like the beginning is like the monster abducting this girl so long ago, and then like you're
Hmm.
back in modern day. Um, and it's a foggy weather atmosphere, and it's probably really like a darker kind of mood, really
Hmm.
like grotesque maybe and dark and macabre. Um, so I guess since you kind of talked about some of them, this is a good segue into your characters, which I'm
Sweet.
sure there's plenty of options here.
Hmm.
So I guess we'll get started on those if you want to introduce those.
Yes. Okay. So I kind of envision the mansion, the property. I kind of envision that that's owned by someone. That
Yes.
there's like a woman who, you know, bought that. I think I imagine her as being like an out of towner. Maybe she's like American, so she's like moved there, and she's like, oh, this would be a great place to like do a bed and breakfast or whatever. And she kind of like hears stories about the legend, but she's like not sure if she really believes in the hauntings. So she buys the property anyway. And
Right.
then I kind of had in mind that maybe like she had like hired crews to like renovate it, and none of them stuck because everybody got scared off by the hauntings. So she's kind of just sitting on this property now. Like she's not able to sell it because nobody wants it. She kind of just has it. So then I kind of envision that she's a family friend of the Hardy Boys,
Right.
which
Oh yeah.
is why they're there. So they're there to like kind of solve the mystery for her. And it just happens that Nancy stumbles on this as well. But
Like
so I
always.
have, yes, of course. So I mean, it's kind of a coincidence, a big coincidence there, but you know, I wanted them to be there. So we'll go with it.
Yeah, so I'm assuming like since everyone's pretty much left, she's alone and she's like upkeeping it by herself. So that's why she's
Hmm.
pretty much there because the body is working for her right now.
Yes.
Um, or maybe the Hardy Boys are potentially there to help her as well, but also find out what's going on.
Yeah.
Perfect. And so she, huh? She's giving like this is reminding me a lot of what's her face? Gosh, from Moon Lake, the woman that owned the house.
Oh,
Sally
yes.
McDonald, is that her name?
Yes. Yes. I think,
Yeah, so
yes, I'm
that
pretty sure. It's been a while.
um so I guess let's how old is she like older or is she younger?
I feel like she's probably maybe like early 40s is kind of how I envision her being. Not super young, but like not super old either.
Gotcha. Let's for the sake of just this podcast, call her Sarah.
Okay, yeah. You
Does
know
that
what's
sound
funny?
good?
I thought that name actually. That's kind of funny.
So Sarah is the like the owner of the property
Hmm.
because I'm writing this down. The owner of the property, and she as well is a family friend of the Hardy Boys.
Yes.
Perfect. And her name is Sarah, and she's early 40s. Um, great. Perfect. So there's Sarah,
Cool.
and
Another. Oh, sorry.
oh, I'm just talking about. So now we're going into, I guess, the town's folk.
Yes. So for there, I kind of was thinking, oh, I do have a name for the ghost. I think that her name was Nora.
Oh, I like that. That's really fitting.
I actually have to shout out Rebecca. It's Loch Nancy because she helped me come up with that name.
Oh yes, Rebecca McLean. Awesome. So Nora is the ghost. That's all you can use to describe her, the ghost, the
Yes,
spirit,
yes.
the entity.
So I envision that one of the townsfolk is maybe a daughter of Nora's sister. Kind of what I was thinking. So
Yeah.
she's kind of, I don't. That makes her niece or whatever.
Yeah, so like then or maybe like the grandniece or
Yeah,
something
something like that.
something related to it.
Yeah. So
We'll just say grandniece, I guess.
yeah,
Just
yeah, that makes sense. That
'cause
works.
I'm assuming like this was a long, long time ago. Her
Yeah.
niece probably would be dead too. Um,
Yes.
so where is she like located, do you think, in the town? Is she like the pub owner or
I
just
actually
just chilling in town?
I, I know. I hadn't really thought much about that. I was thinking she was just chilling in town. I figured she'd be like someone that Nancy finds out about and is like, oh, there's like a relative. Like maybe I can like go talk to her and find out if she's heard any family stories about this or like knows if Nora left any journals or whatever. So I don't know. I didn't really have her being anybody particular, just someone in the town.
Yeah, maybe one thought, maybe she could want to know, like she knows quite a bit about Nora, but maybe she like wants to know more, so she's like doing research somewhere. Maybe
Oh,
like she's
yes.
at like like outside like a bookstore or a library with a bunch of books about like
Ooh,
grand her grand aunt
yes.
because she doesn't quite know everything, but she knows more than Nancy does, but like
Mhm.
not everything.
Yes.
So maybe like there's like just like there's like a town square and like one of the buildings is the bookstore and she's outside that building.
Oh, yeah. I like
Um,
that.
okay, so um, I wonder what her name could be.
Yeah, I was trying to think about that.
Let's see. She's probably I would say she's maybe like she's giving me vibes of somebody who's like maybe in like their 20s
Yes,
because
I
she's
think so
younger.
too. Mhm.
Um, I me and these basic names. I'm for some reason Jessica sticking out to me.
That totally
Um,
works.
so Jessica is the grandniece, and she is outside the bookstore doing research on Nora.
Yes, I like it.
Great. So since you're dead set on this character, let's talk about like the pub owner you were talking about earlier.
Okay, so
Let's go
this
ahead
is
and go there. So since you have a dead set idea on this person, and it's easier to talk about.
yes. Okay, for this person, this is the one I was saying. I imagine it being a guy. So I
Okay.
imagine he's, his family's been in the town for generations. I kind of have the idea that his family was super directly involved in the incident with Nora's fiance.
Ooh, wow. I
So
like
I
I like that.
I kind of had the idea that like when they first meet him, he kind of just like gives them some like vague story about everything, kind of just vaguely gives them like a legend or whatever. And the more they talk to him, the more they like kind of suspect that he knows more than he's like letting on about it. So that's
Right.
kind of where throughout the game they're like interrogating him, and I feel like maybe he like lets them in on details like a little bit at a time, and then kind of like changes his story a few times so that they kind of start to suspect that he like knows more about it.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what I was thinking there. I don't have much more except for that
I
his
like
family was
that.
definitely
I
involved.
like that because that connects somebody. Like you've got Jessica connected to the ghost, but then you have this guy who's connected to like the people that killed this guy,
Yeah.
that like were involved in the killing of the ghost's like fiance.
Mhm.
So don't spoil anything, but I have a feeling he's going to have a bigger part in what like or somebody he's related to is going to have a bigger part in that than what they think that he he does.
Yes, yes.
Um, so I see where you're going with this. Um, so I so we're gonna just call this. Um, well, no, I I want to get some Irish names out there,
Yeah, I
but
was
you can't
thinking
read
that.
Denal because Denal's taken by Denal Delaney.
Yep.
Uh, unless he no. Um,
I'm like trying to think. I'm like my knowledge on Irish names is so limited.
so I know this name was used in Castle Malloy, but it was like used maybe twice in the whole game. He's giving me like Brendan vibes
Ooh.
with
Yeah.
like a
Okay.
Brendan with like a E, because like
Yeah.
Brendan Malloy was like Fiona's father,
Uh huh.
but still he's giving me like Brendan vibes.
I like
Um,
that.
so
Yeah.
we got Sarah as the property owner, Nora as the ghost, Jessica as the grandniece, and then Brendan is the guy pub owner who somebody in his family is somehow connected to this tragic incident that led to the ghost. Um, perfect. So that's four so far. Who else we got?
So I have kind of, let's see. I did write down maybe like one of the waitresses at the pub or whatever. I don't have her very fleshed out though. She would I think I kind of have written down that she was like not from the town, so she kind of just like has heard lots of rumors about it. And she kind of passes rumors that she hears to Nancy and them. Because I mean, being a waitress, maybe she like overhears like what people are saying. It's kind of
Right.
what I was
Yeah.
thinking. But yeah, I don't have her fleshed out very well.
So, so she could be suspicious because maybe she um, relays stuff that maybe only Nancy and Bess and George know, and they're
Yeah,
like, "Well, how do you know that?" And she's like, "Oh, I heard it somewhere." But that
right,
maybe she's the one that caused it, or maybe she's the one
right.
that like maybe she was like following them and was also there. So I think that that's a good character to have, just because if she's giving like them rumors, if she's to say something that maybe only they know about, like maybe there was a haunting that only they would know about, and she comes up to them and is like, "Oh, somebody heard that." Like maybe there's like a fire or something, just a general idea. Maybe there's like a fire or something in the house, and like nobody knew about it except Nancy, who like put it out. And she's like, "Oh, I heard there was a fire in the house," and you're like, "Well, how do you know that?" Um,
Mhm.
just like a general like, it doesn't have to like be canon, but just like a general idea of
Right.
what I'm talking about. So I think that that's a good character to have, and she also like, I'm assuming like works for Brendan, so maybe like that should, like they can use her to maybe tell them stuff that Brenda's not telling them.
Oh,
Um,
yes, yes, that's good.
so yeah, let's definitely keep that. So we got the waitress in the pub. Um, but you said she's like not Irish. She's just like she just like moved there and is pretty much and is trying to have that job.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking. At least that she's not from that specific town in Ireland. She's just not from that particular place, so she doesn't like have any like concrete knowledge on like anything. She just knows what she's heard since she's moved there.
Yeah, let's call her like Kate or something like
Okay.
that.
Yeah,
Not
Kate.
Not Kate Drew, but like Kate. Her name is just Kate. Plain just Kate.
Sounds good.
Yeah, so are there any other physical characters?
Those are the only ones that I have written down, other than like obviously, Frank and Joe and Bess and George.
Perfect. So you mentioned that Ned is a phone contact.
Yes.
Are there any other phone contacts?
Yes. So I have decided that Savannah Woodham has to be a phone contact
She must. Yes. Yes. Yes.
because she's like the ghost hunter, you have to have her on there. So I have
Yeah,
her on there.
I like to ask this question whenever Savannah comes up on this podcast. What do you imagine Savannah looks like?
Ooh, you know what? Okay, so my first thought when I think of her is like a blonde, like Southern lady is
I do
usually
too.
what I think of her. But I was actually listening to Rebecca's episode where she
We talked
mentioned like
about her
sometimes
being, potentially a person of color. Yeah.
yes, which I actually really love that idea. So like totally like open to that being like imagining her that way.
Yeah, but we talked about a lot, especially because that career field is particularly male dominated and particularly white male dominated. Just
Mm-hmm.
having her be a woman and also black would just
Yeah,
be amazing.
would be
Um,
awesome.
but anyway, so you imagined her before that podcast just to be like this Southern lady with blonde hair, and for a long time I did too. Like whenever Saul first came out, that was my like avatar for her, was like a blonde woman, and
Mm-hmm.
you can make the avatars in that game. Mine was like a blonde woman just like casually chilling. So
Yep.
we've got Savannah, and maybe she's there because she maybe like wants Nancy to give her some tips of what's happening there. Maybe she wants to write a new story about it, or maybe
Mm-hmm.
she's just calling Savannah because Savannah's already written a story about it, maybe.
I
Or
was
maybe
thinking I was thinking actually that maybe Savannah had already had some like experience with the story. Like
yeah,
she had maybe like already looked into it a little bit. So maybe like Nancy was calling her to see if she had looked into it and then finds out that she had something like that. That's
yeah,
kind of what I was
perfect.
thinking.
That sounds good. There one more because we kind of talked. We started talking about the way she looked, and we we
Yeah,
didn't.
you're right. I had an idea for, well, I said Carson Drew. So Nancy's dad would definitely be another phone contact. Um, But then also, I kind of was thinking that maybe there would be like one other phone contact that she finds in the game, like maybe
Love it.
maybe Jessica that's doing the research like knows of someone who knows some information and gives that phone number to Nancy, or Nancy stumbles on it. Kind of had the idea that there'd be like another phone contact that appears part of the way through the game.
Right. It would be even cooler if like this person was in like the opposite, that like the other town. You're talking about
Ooh,
like the towns being like West Side
yes.
Story like and be like competitive against one another. So we got like pretty much these people are all in the same town pretty much. But like
Yeah.
imagine like, somebody from the opposite town who could share that side of the story from whenever all that incident happened all those years ago.
Oh, yes,
Maybe
I
that's
like
what
that.
like maybe thought. Um, so this is a lot of characters. We're inching on Midnight in Salem level
I
characters.
know. I actually thought
Hopefully,
of that. I was like, whoa.
hopefully much more fleshed out than they were. But um, so this is good. This is good.
I always
Um,
liked it when there was like more characters. But yeah, Midnight in Salem kind of went a little bit too much in that they didn't like flesh everybody out very well. So like
because with all those characters, there was so much potential, but
yeah.
because they weren't fleshed, like I'm okay with all those characters, but they weren't fleshed out
Hmm.
enough to where they were just like they weren't really interesting, and it just was weird.
Exactly.
So we've pretty much talked about how they're all suspicious in their own ways and why they're there and how they're connected, and their gender. So we're good. Um, so next I have puzzles. Do you have any puzzles that you created for this game? Like maybe if it's a puzzle we've kind of already seen before, like is it coming back to this game again?
Most of the puzzles I was thinking of were pretty much just ones that we've seen before. I
Ooh, like
like so like I do okay, so I do have an idea that Nora wrote poetry and that
Yeah.
she definitely wrote a lot of poetry after the tragedy happened with her fiance. So I kind of thought that maybe she like I have the idea that like I don't know how much I like should say about the ending, but like
Yeah, don't spoil the ending yet. Just say there's definitely going to be some kind of poetry related puzzle at some point.
yes,
And we'll talk
yes,
about
there
that
you go.
later.
There
Okay.
you go.
Great. So you said a lot of the other ones are stuff that we've seen before, but kind of
Yeah,
revamped for
kind
this
of.
setting and this game.
Yes, basically. Because, like, I kind of have an idea that, like, maybe, like, Nancy finds, some archives in the town for, like, town history. So there's always those, like, sorting puzzles that Nancy does where she has to, like, sort files and then, like,
Right.
read through them. So I kind of had, like, that idea for that. And mostly they're puzzles that we've seen before.
Yeah, perfect. And maybe some like decoding puzzles,
Yes.
or like maybe like Nora had like a secret code that she and her fiance like wrote in, and you have to decode what that code is,
Hmm.
or like um, maybe there's like a locked door puzzle, and there's
Hmm.
you have to unlock like you have to solve the puzzle to unlock the door. Um, Good, or maybe she can volunteer at the pub and make drinks, like just like Casa Malloy, or
I thought about that, but then I was like, okay, so I like to kind of the chore puzzles are sometimes fun, but I kind of wanted all my puzzles to be a little more like directly like related to the mystery itself
yeah.
rather than just like random chore puzzles. They're
See,
kind of
and that's my beef with Shadow Ranch because there are so many chore puzzles. I can't stand it. Like I love the game and I love just like the idea of like the Western love mystery, but then when I think about picking vegetables and picking eggs and all of that crap, like I just makes me not want to play it again.
exactly.
But, like,
Like
I
I'm
love
like
it.
sometimes chore puzzles can be fun. Like some of them I'm like they're fun. Like making the drinks in Castle Malloy I actually kind of like. Like it's kind of fun to do. But it's just like I'm like why am I doing these puzzles? Like
Yeah,
are
and
they
plus
really related?
yeah, and plus like the drink puzzle in that game, you only have to do it once.
Mhm.
Like the other times are optional. And
Mhm.
whereas like Shadow Ranch, like you have to pick the vegetables every single day and you have to pick
Exactly.
the eggs every single day and it just gets minor. But anyway,
Yes.
um so we're straying free from chore puzzles and we're looking more towards like actual puzzles that are like you have to have a strategy, you have to like figure it out.
Yeah.
It's much less chores.
Yes.
Um, so one interesting thing um, I like to do is talk about like the passage of time, like what happens when she first gets like what's the very first scene that you see in the game? Is it maybe like a flashback to this tragedy with Nora all those years ago, or do you maybe see her like landing from her plane and going up to the manor? Like what's the very like first thing that happens? Like how do things play out in the game? Like what
The
order
very
do
the
you see?
very the very first scene that I see in my head is a flashback to the tragedy that happens with Nora. So I definitely think it opens up like that. And then after you see that flashback, I kind of imagine that Bess and George and Nancy are arriving at the bed and breakfast that they're staying at. Um, from there, I'm like, I do think that they like go out sightseeing where they kind of like stumble on the mansion. So they find the mansion, they kind of
Yeah.
like exploring that. And then after they're done with that, they go to the pub to have their meal, and that's where they talk to the owner. And then I do think that they go back to the mansion at some point, which is where I think they run into the Hardy Boys.
Right.
So I kind of imagine that they're like exploring the mansion again and they like start to hear some noises that aren't really the same as the noises they've been hearing. And they just like kind of like literally just run into Frank and George or Frank and Joe. I mean, they just literally like run into them.
Is there
Um,
like a part where like you like sneak in the mansion, like maybe when maybe like you sneak in at night when maybe like Sarah's not there and you
yes,
oh
yes.
good.
Because like I don't imagine that Sarah's there like a ton all the time. Like I do think that she might have like she's there every once in a while, kind of just like keeping up with things. she's definitely not there at night. So I think that they do sneak in there at night a lot.
Nice. Let's not talk about the end yet. Let's
Okay.
keep going because I like to build up suspense to the end. What are like some death scenes? Those are always fun to create. What are some game over sequences that you think could happen in this game? I would love to see another like rotting floorboard
Yeah.
death. Maybe like the house is old and floorboards are weak.
I
That's
actually did have that written down.
all you do. Oh,
I did.
perfect.
And then I thought maybe it's an abandoned property. So I was like, maybe there's like, maybe some ceiling tiles aren't quite, you know, um, maybe they're loose. Maybe they like fall on their head or something.
Right.
um, it's kind of up on like a hill with like some cliff sides. So I'm like, maybe they like fall off the cliff and they could die that way. That was really all I had written down. I was trying to brainstorm these before we started recording, actually.
Yeah, there's always the getting caught by somebody. Maybe at one point you sneak behind the pub owner's desk and he can catch you,
Yes,
or
there you go.
there's always the potential like there's always probably going to be something at maybe we'll talk about the in-game sequence, but there's probably going to be an in-game sequence death we can make up later. There's always just the potential like maybe there's like a bug somewhere or like an animal somewhere that I don't know. I don't know what animals are in Ireland, but um, but there's a bunch of stuff I could see happening with these death sequences.
Mhm.
Um, or maybe you like try to sneak into the kitchen of the pub and the waitress catches you. Anyway, perfect. So
Could also maybe like get caught trying to, cause I mean, Nancy gets caught trying to go through people's stuff all the time. So maybe she like tries to go through Jessica's research papers when she's like not looking and then gets in trouble for that or something.
I would also love to see like you. So here's something we haven't talked about. Can you play as Bess, George, or the Hardy Boys?
I was actually thinking about this because, okay, so I think that that could be fun. Like, I think it's fun when you can like switch between characters. But like, what is the game that they're in River Heights for? What's it called?
Alibi and Ashes.
Yes.
But you don't want it to be too much
No.
like that game was.
Exactly. And like
Yeah.
I realized that I put like both Bess and George and Joe and Frank in this game. So I was like, that could like potentially be really annoying switching between characters, just like Alibi and Ashes. And I don't want it to be like that.
Because I'm imagining this hilarious game over sequence where like Bess messes up and says something under pressure, or like maybe is clumsy and falls and hurts herself, and like Bess ruins it for everybody.
Yes,
Like I
definitely.
would die to see that happen.
That was so great.
Like um, maybe like Nancy's successful in going through somebody's stuff, and then when she confronts the person about it, Bess just blurts out, "We went through your stuff and found out." And like
Yes.
the person gets mad, and so the game ends.
She would though.
Classic, classic Bess.
Also, I think it'd be fun to play as Joe in this experience because, like, I feel like Joe gets really into the ghost hunting element of things.
True.
So I feel like he'd be like one that was like super into it. Like, yeah, we're gonna like maybe he like brought all this like equipment for like the ghost hunter stuff, and like I just think it'd be fun to play with him, play as him.
Just please, not another equipment puzzle like what Midnight in Salem had.
Oh no,
um,
we're not gonna go there.
Good. So I guess this leads to the pressing question: who is the culprit and why?
So
Hold on to your hats.
This is what I was trying to like really figure out because I definitely think that the pub owner that's relative was directly involved in everything. So I
Yeah.
kind of have the idea that like, you know, his relative, I was like trying to figure out like timeline, like I was like would it be like his great grandfather? Anyway, somebody that's a relative of his was the one that organized like the mob or whatever that kind of sabotaged these two people's
Wow.
outings. And kind of had the idea that like the way her like fiance dies is he like falls off a cliff and dies, basically. And it's this guy's relative that's the one that like directly like organized all of that and is the one that pushed him off the cliff.
Oh my
So I
god!
have that in mind.
Wow.
So there's that.
Or maybe like this relative pushed him off the cliff,
Mm-hmm.
and or maybe like this is something interesting I just thought of. Maybe like um Nora or maybe the guy's dad had like a lot of money that he was going to inherit or something,
Mm.
and maybe like that money's hidden somewhere in the mansion.
Oh
And
gosh. Yeah.
so the pub owner is like orchestrating these hauntings of, or maybe Nora's real. If Nora's real, that's different. But maybe like the pub, it's like in his legacy to like this money is like maybe like it's in legacy somewhere, or the guy that pushed his family member that pushed the fiance off the cliff maybe like wound up with stealing that money from him and hid it somewhere, and maybe he's trying to find it, or
Hmm.
just I don't. That was just a basic. Maybe this could happen. But oh my gosh, do you hear that?
I did, yeah.
I'm not gonna cut that because I want people to understand how inconsiderate people are. Anyway,
Sounds
um,
good.
I but
I
I
like that
do
idea.
think it would be interesting if like some of the stuff that was happening in the house were because he was doing it because something maybe is hidden there that he's looking for. Um, I I just like the idea of like that it's in like this dude's legacy to like bring hell to this family. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, yes,
Um,
yes. I like
um,
that.
or maybe he's like trying to actually maybe, or if Nora's real, maybe he's like trying to catch her in a sighting, and he doesn't want
Yeah.
anybody like around the mansion to interfere with her. Um,
Yes, because like I definitely do imagine that she's real. Like, because I'm me
yeah,
and I'm like, I like it when the ghosts are real.
yeah.
So I was trying to figure out how I could work it to where she'd be like actually real.
So maybe he's like wanting to like maybe he's looking for something that he knows that she hid through his relative, and so he goes to the house and like tries to scare everybody away, and like tear some stuff up, or it's a hazard to go into the house,
Mhm.
and so he's kind of wanting to come face to face with Nora so he can confront her ghost about this
Yes.
past stuff, and that's such a beautiful like image in my head, like such like
Yes.
a haunting like motivation for all of this.
Yes.
Um,
I like that a lot.
So the final bit, how does she catch him, and what does she do to stop him?
Hmm.
What do you think? Maybe maybe he just like casually walks up to the house while they're there and is like, "Oops, I'm busted," or
Or they just like maybe they like go to the mansion while he's there doing something and they kind of just like stumble upon him doing that. Like they kind of walk in on him doing something, maybe.
yeah, or maybe like at the end is when they find out that the relative's actually the person that killed the fiance. And when
Hmm.
they go to confront him about it, maybe they see something that leads them to realize he's not there and he's at the mansion, and so or maybe the waitress is like he went to the mansion,
Yes, that's a good idea.
and then so they go to the mansion and they confront him, and I'm thinking maybe like the gang like confronts him and like backs him up into that rotten floorboard, and he
Oh
like
yes,
falls to the floor, and that's how he gets caught.
I'm here for it.
Um,
I like
or
that
maybe
image.
like or maybe like Nora comes out of nowhere and like scares him backwards into the
Ooh, yes.
backwards through the floor that's loose.
I
Um,
definitely think she needs to show up at the end for
let's do
sure.
that. So she comes out and she is like, "You will never get whatever you're looking for," and she like scares him so much he like backs up into this area that Nancy knows is like broken floorboard, and she's like, "No, stop! You're gonna fall!" And he falls down to the floor, and that's how he gets caught. Um,
I love it.
so to recap that for all you listeners, they find out that his ancestor killed Nora's fiance, and they go to the pub to confront him. And the waitress is like, he went to the mansion to make ends meet, and so they confront him. And then Nora's ghost appears and knocks him backwards into the floor, and that's how he gets busted.
Which then she kind of kind of gets like some revenge there because like she didn't get revenge on his actual relative that killed her
Yeah.
fiance, but she can get some like, revenge by getting him hurt.
And then in the end letter, Nancy's like, and then she was never seen again
Exactly.
because she got what
Exactly.
she was looking for. She got like her revenge on him.
Yes, I love that.
So this is giving me major Joseph Thornton vibes,
It really is.
and I love it.
Here for it.
So here we go. This game, I know it's basic and the title of the book, but I mean, The Mystery of the Moss-Covered Mansion is what I'm thinking this game is called.
So the name I came up with is different. I should have told you that I have a town name for this town, by the way.
Oh, what is it?
It's Lisbeth. Or wait, Lisbridge. Sorry.
How do you spell that?
Lisbridge. It came from a name generator.
Oh, wow, nice.
But I liked the ring of it.
Ooh, so what's your title?
So The Haunting of Lisbridge.
The Haunting of Lisbridge. Perfect.
Which is kind of basic too, but
The Haunting of Castle Lisbridge. Basically. Okay. So now let's brainstorm a cover art for this game because I used to be all about the cover arts when I was little.
Ooh.
I'm trying to get the idea that Nora looks like Fiona out of my head because I'm imagining her to look like Fiona, and I'm like, she's not Fiona, she's not the Banshee.
Yeah.
So what does the cover look like in your mind?
I have an image in my mind for Nora, but the image that keeps popping up into my mind is Clara Oswald from Doctor Who.
I love it. I'm here for it. So she's like an older version of Jenna Louise Coleman, and she's
basically. Like, I don't know why that image is in my mind. Maybe it's because wasn't it you that I was talking to about Charlotte from Ghost of Thornton Hall? But you thought that
and she does look like her. You're like, she's like Jenna Louise Coleman is like your fan cast for Charlotte.
Yeah. So then I think that's why that image is in my mind. Like, I just haven't been able to get that out of my head.
So I don't think this would be this hard for this podcast, but I can't. When I'm not thinking about the cover of Castle Malloy, I'm thinking about the cover of Thornton Hall because they both look like they would fit.
Same.
So maybe you see Nora like not at the house, but maybe she's like in the town's like the Lisbeth town square.
Mm-hmm. Ooh, yeah.
And you can like see the surrounding buildings in the town square, and she's like crying and sobbing. Great.
She
And
looks really sad because it's tragic.
Yes. And then so back in the olden days, every game would have like a color, like the disc would be a certain color. So like what color is this game, do you think?
I'm trying to think about that.
What color vibe does this game give you?
I feel like it gives me probably I keep thinking green. Maybe just because like Ireland is so green.
Yeah, I was thinking gray.
Oh well, okay, gray too. Like
We haven't
like
really seen a lot of gray
we haven't.
in these.
Have we had any gray discs in the games?
No, we haven't. We have not
I don't
had.
think so.
Have we had? I don't even think we've had like a black one, a black disc.
Either. Gray kind of goes with like the foggy like vibe too.
Right, and like the somberness of everything happening with Nora.
Yeah, definitely.
Great. So I guess we're at closing remarks. This game that's knock off Thornton Hall and then knock off Castle Malloy, but with a twist, and I love it.
Original ideas for my life, but I'll borrow from my favorite.
Yes, Ace should, maybe Ace is like the face claim for the fiance that died off the cliff.
Yes, I'm here for that. I'm here for it. I love it.
Great. So if you don't have any remarks, I think that we can call this a podcast. I think this was really successful.
Awesome. Thanks
We
for
created a was able to elaborate a lot on your ideas and created a lot of
we
good
did.
stuff together. Great. So I will be in touch,
Cool.
and this will be posted soon.